your life, you deserve to be more, be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.
Welcome to Becoming More podcast, where each and every individual that I interview helps us become more through what they have experienced in their lifetime. Now, Andy Peters is our guest today. He's an operating principal for the Georgia Legacy Group and Carolina Legacy Group, which is made up of multiple Keller Williams realty franchises. And this group has over 3,000 real estate agents that Andy is over, and it is one of the most profitable. In fact, they are in the top 50 profitable market centers out of 800 in the franchise. Think about that, 50 out of 800. And he is ranked number 1 in the world for profitability. Now, I don't know about you yet, as a business owner, profitability is what keeps it going, right? Andy is a national real estate trainer who specializes in team growth, marketing, and listing property. He's a top Keller Williams agent and has been for years. And he went from Atlanta, Georgia to Savannah. Think about moving. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Andy has a passion for helping the homeless. In fact, he helps many charities within the Atlanta area. And one of the things that we have in common is collecting guitars. I want to get more into that, Andy, and about the children, your 2 adolescent children that have helped you make many of the decisions in your life. So let's get going. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks, Dianna. It's my pleasure to be here and quite an honor to be with you anytime I can.
Well, we've had so much fun together when we were up there in January. And of course, you and Tony love to fish. So you had his attention the minute, anytime you say fishing, my husband is on his way. And he just so admires you as a businessman. Now, I want to take you back because I know a lot about you and Lesley. And Lesley entered into the real estate world when she was a teacher. And being a teacher, you gave great words of wisdom to her. What did you tell her when she came home and said, I want to be in real estate?
I said, don't quit your day job. Let's make sure this real estate thing works out before we go quitting our jobs, our salaried jobs. Yeah.
So here she is. She's going to work, teaching from 7 a.m. to 4. She goes to the real estate office, works until 9 or 10. That had to put a lot of pressure on you. As a husband, what were you going through? Were you wondering if she was going to make it?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you try something new, I was afraid for her to burn the boats at that point. What I've learned is that now I would bet on her to do anything, right? I wouldn't think twice about if she wanted to do something, whether or not she was going to be successful at it. I knew she was good. I don't know that I really realized how good she could be, because once she got into the real estate space, she became, a firecracker and became the envy of teams and people wanting her to join. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Maybe I want to join you, right? Maybe I want to do this with you. So it was great. And it was the one moment that I probably doubted her abilities, and shame on me because I won't do that again because she proved me wrong.
Well, you're a big one on strengths, and you use Strength Finder. Did you use that, and do you use that still today with your team?
Oh yeah. In fact, I've got this very squarely placed in my office of, what my strengths are, responsibility, includer, positivity, maximizer, woo. I look at these and I identify with them, and it's not so much that I look at where my weaknesses, I look at those strengths and I focus on them. How can I make sure that what we're doing keeps me in the lane? And where I'm out of it, call me on it, and empower other people around me to call me out on it.
Let's look at those again. I really like that responsibility, number one. I've always known you to be responsible for everything in your life. Yet that woo, there's very few people. John Maxwell's the only other woo I know in my world. And you, that's a big one. That means that you connect with people very well. So tell me some of the ways that you connect with folks that we could learn from.
I use a lot of analogies. My dad is, he's a funny Southern man and incredibly successful, but I was fortunate enough to learn business through him and with him for about 7 years before I got into the real estate business. And this was a characteristic that he had. And I believe it's learned behavior. I believe your ability to connect with folks quickly on their terms, not yours, is vital to your success in anything you're doing, whether it's business or friendships or whatever. But your ability to be able to make people feel like they're the most important person in the room, and I don't always do it well. Sometimes it's a train wreck, and I'm learning from it, But a lot of analogies. I like to tell stories. I love history. I love learning from, biographies and autobiographies of people that have gone through struggles. I love inspirational messages. Now in our leadership group, I am constantly, every single week and sometimes every single day talking about, this is an inspirational video, or this is an inspirational message, or this is something I read. And I just like sharing that kind of thing with people because I believe that's the way we learn. We learn through stories, and nobody wants to just hear people throw up on them or, talk at them. They want to be related to.
You're very, very good at meeting people where they're at. And before we go into that, do you have a favorite quote? Because you said you love reading about all these things, and sometimes we have a favorite one, sometimes not. What would be yours?
I love Henry Ford's quote, "You can't build a reputation based upon what you're going to do." So
That does sound like you because you're very intentional about what you do. And speaking of intentionality, let's go in to, if you'll pull that back up, whatever you call that, the person in a nutshell is what I call it.
Yes.
And so now you know this about the people. Those are the strengths from Strength Finders. And then you have ISC.
Oh, yeah.
Now, tell us about that.
So this is the DISC profile, right? And it's funny because whenever I was in outside sales working with my dad and I was having to go knock on doors, I was told that, and if you're going to be successful in this business, you have to have a very high D. And I wouldn't say I ever had that like throw them against the wall, close them personality. I had to, and this is my profile, right? So the way I tricked that is that I had to learn a process so well that I became confident in the process, trusting it, and that made an artificial D come out. And I learned that from my dad. He was like, look, here's who you are. And it's not that you can't be successful because this doesn't gauge your, how motivated you are. It doesn't judge your integrity, right? It doesn't judge any of that. It is who you are, and so how do you use these gifts and talents to the best of your ability? Another funny thing related to the DISC is that in the real estate space, whether it's being an agent or running a team or growing a team or being a broker, in my world, it's called an operating partner. There are matches for positions within the organization. My second, and there's probably, there's maybe 30 different positions that you can match for. My second worst match is mega agent. Now, we've sold almost 4,000 houses in our career, and I didn't sell them, but I was towards the end of my career, I was 100, 120 listings a year. And even with this profile, right? My worst match was operating partner. I'm a 1%.
Now, wait, you're one of the best ones in the country.
Well, thank you. And it's one of those things where I understand what I am good at and what I'm not. And therefore, I'm really, really intentional with surrounding myself with the folks that fill those gaps that I don't just know, I feel, right? And that's there's a little bit of a humility with that, I guess, where you've got to say, like, I can't know it all, and I can't do it all, and I can't be it all. It comes though from the right partnerships, and it comes from getting to know people better, and understanding what are their profiles and how do we G-haul together.
Right. Well, you've got this for everybody on your team, so you know in a nutshell who they are. I'm going to use your woo a little bit here, and we're going to play a game. So you walk up to somebody. In fact, I'm going to use my husband as well. Now, there's a couple of other things on that chart, and it has your love languages on it. Notice
Yeah.
those on the bottom. So if you'll show everybody that
Sure.
chart once again, because I think they should implement this. It has your 5 strengths on top. I think that includer helps you out tremendously. And ISC, and then you've got words of affirmation
and
and
acts.
service. So let's take my husband. You're going to negotiate with him. And by the way, I heard they call you the fierce negotiator, right? Or the hostage negotiator. I love that about them. And they said, oh, he's the hostage negotiator. And I went, wow, that's great. Now, Tony is a DC. He wants it done right, wants it done now, right? He's an achiever, he's a maximizer, he's a relator. And I have to tell you, I forget the other two, I'm so sorry. Yet he has words of affirmations and acts of service. So now you're going to approach Tony on something you decide to speak with him about that maybe isn't going that well. What would you do and why would you do it based upon what I've told you?
I would say, first of all, Tony, I respect you, right?
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we had a sensitive conversation?
And he would say yes.
Yeah. I care a lot about you, and I don't, there's 2 ways that we could probably have this conversation. One would go really, really well, and one would maybe go really bad. I just want you to know that my intention is for it to go really well. And if I say something that offends you, it's not on purpose. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Great. So let's talk about the problem. And I would, now that I have validated him, right? Because he is a D. He likes to have the details. I've gotten permission to have a very delicate, maybe sensitive conversation. Now we can get down to business where we identify what the problem is, and then I would probably ask him, what exactly, Tony, would you hope to, in this problem, in this situation, how would you hope to resolve it, or what would a win look like for you?
I love that question, and he would absolutely answer that.
And now that we've got kind of best case scenario, in the spirit of maybe negotiation, I think it's fair to we all can identify with the idea of a win-win. And a win-win to me looks like I might give up a little bit more than I want, and you might get a little bit less than you want. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. And now we've established, we kind of broken down the walls, and now we're really able to kind of boil it down to what that problem is and isolate it. And then we fix it. And then we ask for feedback. How do you feel now that we've gotten this resolution? How do you feel? Are you crying or dying? I mean, is everything okay? And and you bring in a little bit of humor with it. But then you thank them for, again, like we said, there was 2 ways this could have gone. This could go really bad unintentionally, or this could go really well. And what I'm super excited about is that I feel like we got a resolution on this problem. And I just wanted you to know that you just validated everything that I think about you.
So the words of affirmations came in, the bottom line came in, what you desired, the expectations, all of these things. People, you may want to listen to this over and over again and use this when you're speaking with other people, because it's a great model that we can follow. And you have this for every member on your team. Is it hanging somewhere or just on their desk? Where would I find that?
Yeah, on the sales team, we had these on the wall. And so if you were dealing with somebody, or maybe you had a sensitive situation, you might go and grab theirs and grab yours and put them on the table and say, again, we know that we could get tangled up in some of these personality profiles, but just realize that I respect you and I see you and I understand who you are, and I hope you understand who I am. And our goal here is to find resolution. And at the end of it, I hope it's a handshake or a hug. I'll take either one of them. But at the end of the day, like, we're going to put this to bed today. And it got me out of a lot of jams, that approach. And I'm a high S, right? So you know a little bit about the disc profile, Dianna. The high S is a very steady personality. It is somebody that really doesn't like change. And so I realize that if I'm going to be better in my life, that I'm going to have to embrace change at a higher level than my natural profile wants. And and I have to live in that uncomfortable state a lot more than I want. And when I feel it, instead of being scared of it, I will run to it, or I'll ask more questions around it. And it serves me well. I mean, I'm not one of those that will just get into action immediately. I like to get social proof. I like to ask mentors. I'll do a lot of research before I actually pull the trigger and do something. And sometimes it's not always that comfortable what I got to do, but I'll go through my own checklist in my mind of what, how I need to approach this problem. And then once I make the decision, my natural tendency would be to second guess it. And I'm like, nope, I got to keep moving. Just got to keep moving.
You had to work through that though, because based on your profile, you do want to have things right, not perfect yet, almost perfect. So what did you do to fight through that second guessing yourself?
I guess I'm not a perfect person, so I just accept the fact that nothing's going to be perfect. There's only one perfect person, right? And it's definitely not me. And I think I am very big on centering myself. I use prayer and meditation. I use thinking time. I probably have my head in the clouds a lot more than I should. But I like trying to look around the corner at things, and I like trying to predict the future. I like that futuristic approach to things. And I realize that the future is not the way things are today, because that we know things are going to change. So I just booby trap it. Another thing, probably a tactic that I use is that I do believe that if you want to achieve big things, you first think it. And then once you have thought it and it's important to you, you have to start talking about it. And unless you're a sociopath, you then have to start doing it. So one way that I hack this in my life and in my business world is, I produce a plan every week. We call it a 411. And it's, boiled into, what's my annual goal, what's my monthly goal, or my weekly goals. I give that document. I do it every Sunday night. It's a ritual. I give that document to everybody that I lead in the organization. And I do that because first, I want them to know that I have a plan. And second, I want them to know that I don't expect them to do anything I'm not going to do. And third, I just want them to see that I'm making progress on my goals. Like, that's important, that people see, whoever their leader is, that they are doing something productive. But that's the way I booby trap my natural, personality profile and kind of work around it.
So stop right here just a moment. Grant, if I get you that 411, let's see if we can put this in. And I'm just going to add this. Obviously, if we cannot say download here, then cut all this out. So I'm interested in the 411, Andy, because I too learned that model and system. And I'd love to share that with everyone here. If you just add yes or text us at, oh shoot, I don't know which number to give them. I got to say it differently. Sorry about that, Grant. I'm so sorry. Okay. The 411 is a great model that is provided by Keller Williams Realty International through Gary Keller. He came up with it. And the 411 will help guide us as it did Andy. If you're interested in that, just reply yes to what you're hearing. Or better yet, go to my Facebook page, Dianna Kokoszka, and we will make certain you get that 411. Okay, now let's go back in, Grant. If we can use that, great. If not, or if I have to say it differently, please get back with me today so I have on the same outfit. All right.
Can I tell
And
a story about the 411 real quick?
yes, let's do that.
So Dianna, I had a good friend of mine who's a Chick-fil-A operator, and he called me one day and he said, Andy, I know you develop a lot of talent and you lead a lot of people in your organization. He's like, we have a great mentorship program. And of course we have a lot of young people that come in, and I'm just struggling on like how I help them as their leader, how I help them achieve their goals. And we were having another discussion around wealth building through real estate, because I was helping him buy real estate as well. And I presented the 411 to him. I actually brought mine up, and he said, oh my goodness. He said, can I have a copy of this? And I was like, absolutely. And within his Chick-fil-A now, he uses that as a tool to help his people achieve their goals. It's a universal tool, and what a fabulous one it is to keep you centered and keep you focused on what you want.
It really is. And it works in any industry, in any business. It actually even works for a housewife who I believe works very, very hard, yet it keeps everything going. And can you imagine learning that when you're like your first job? Wow, that would be fabulous. Okay, I'm taking you back to being uncomfortable here because you live in that uncomfortable zone, much like my husband, Tony, who sold real estate in the top 10 internationally for Remax year after year. And he said, I love real estate. I just don't like people. I don't like the other realtors. I don't like buyers. I don't like sellers. Other than that, I love real estate. Now, it wasn't that he didn't love people. He's just not a people person like you are. Yet you have uncomfortable things that you have to live in that uncomfortable space. You brought it up earlier. What are some of the areas that you live in that are very uncomfortable for you?
Yeah. I mean, the number one is just decision making. I look at what are all of the alternatives. My decision-making process historically is, what's the worst case scenario?
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst thing that can happen? And I'm not saying that's the right thing. Right? I've had to work around that, because that's not who I want to be. I don't want to think in worst case scenarios. But historically, it was, what's the worst case scenario? And then how do I improve upon that outcome? What would I need to do to improve upon that outcome? And these days, I look at it from the perspective of, I find people that I trust, folks that maybe have had more life experiences than I have, or know more about the subject matter than I do. So I use a little bit more of a higher authority kind of counseling approach now when I make decisions. But decision making, it has historically been one of those things that I had anxiety around, because I wasn't sure if I was going to make the right one or not. Now, fortunately, I live with and I'm married to someone who has no problem making decisions. And so I laugh and tease her sometimes. I'm like, you help me make decisions and I help you make better decisions. She doesn't really like that too much, Dianna, when I say that. But it is true. Like, being around people that And when I think about the general managers in my world, or the team leaders in our world, or directors in our world, there's a lot of high D dominant people, and that's by design. I actually get along well with most everybody. My dad once told me, he said, I could live in the room with a rattlesnake as long as I know it's there. Um, I can along with most people, and I actually enjoy the challenge in that. So I like to find folks that are a little different than me. We have similar values, of course,
Values, yeah.
but we go about things a little bit differently. And I look at that as an opportunity, not a threat.
I've got to tell you, I am so excited about this interview because you're bringing up practical things, principles that you live by. And you've gone outside of Atlanta. I want people to listen to the podcast that you and your wife did with me, because we go into all of those decisions and how you made really tough decisions in your life, monumental decisions that affected your entire family. Yet you've also done that in your business. You started out with your wife in real estate, then you became an operating partner, which in that world means that you're responsible for certain things like cash flow. So you had to learn business. Where did you learn those business aspects from, and where have they taken you?
Well, I would say I learned business from my dad, who was very similar to me, and personality profile wise, and I saw him struggle with some of the same things that I struggle with. Um, reading P&Ls, right? I don't have a business degree. I have a communications degree. So some of that was harder on me in the early days. Now I would say I don't know the finer details of a P&L. Probably people could out P&L me. Um, However, I know the potholes, I understand leading, lagging. I understand the lead dominoes. I understand, the things that can move the needles and change the result. And I believe when I look at the history of any business, or any brokerage, I believe you can make your own statistics, right? You can, everything that we do every day has an impact upon what the future, how the future unfolds. So again, fighting against my profile, it's action. It's getting into action and understanding what are those things that have the biggest impact. Yeah, business is not, you never know everything about business. I mean, it's every single day is a learning lesson. And then there's the leadership lessons, right? If you don't have the right leaders, you can forget the P&L if you don't have the right people. So you're a journeyer as it's related to learning business. I
It
don't
is
know.
a journey. And leadership, I have a statement that I borrowed from the golf world, that leadership is deceptively simple and endlessly complicated. Each and every day is a new day in leadership. In those leading and lagging numbers, what specifically do you look for when you're looking at a business to invest in it, and when you're looking in the business day after day to run it and to make future decisions?
Yeah. I look for the segues. In other words, where does the sales aspect interact with the client? Where does the operations interact with the client? How do we smooth those segues, those transition points? Because honestly, that's where things usually get bogged down. A lot of people know how to sell, a lot of people know how to service, but it's the kind of customer interaction, or in my world, it's of course leadership to agent interaction. And then how do they all fit together, like a circle? It's not a puzzle piece to me. I think one thing leads to another. But I look for, all right, well, inside of these just cryptic numbers, where are the people interactions? and how do we run to the conversations that we need to have in order to get the result that we want. But we're the people and the numbers.
Okay, so where you say people, you're talking about you to your people,
Yeah.
people, team member to team member, then team member to client, client back to you. So you're looking at every single place where people communicate. Now, you majored in communications. This is an important part because most teams break down due to their communication or lack thereof. What do you look for in communication, and what do you do to teach your team that communication so nothing falls through the cracks?
Oh yeah, I love that question. So it's a mission, So when we were building the organization, it started with, what are we all about? And we have now 8 brokerages in 2 states. We have about 3,000 agents. And what I realized was, everybody's selling real estate. That's not the problem. The problem is leaders. And I don't subscribe to the idea of there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right? You got too many leaders in the kitchen. I think we need to renovate the kitchen and get a bigger kitchen. So in order to be in business with the type people that I need in order to achieve what we want, or what I want personally, and be in business with those people, earn the right to be in business with those people, I've got to think really big. And so from a mission standpoint, we're very clear on this. We talk about this every week. We are a place of stunning excellence that attracts, welcomes, and develops real estate leaders with world-class value. That's who we are. It's what we do. At the end of time, that's what we hope that people think about us, is that we made our mark in the industry because we grew more leaders than anybody. And yeah, we sold some houses, right? We sell a lot of houses. But the people sell the houses, and people come and go. Leaders, you want to become a part of people's story, and the way you become a part of their stories, you help them, right? You help them become more. You help them achieve something that they maybe couldn't have achieved on their own. And so when you communicate to people, or you're making a tough decision, or maybe just a big decision, you might start with, hey, what's our mission around here? We're a place of stunning excellence. Are we behaving like a place of stunning excellence right now? Are we missing the mark on this? This is why we've got to change something, because we don't look like a place of stunning excellence right now. Are we attracting the people that we want? If we're not attracting the people we want, we might need to be a little different. Are we welcoming people the right way? In other words, are people coming in? Or are they staying? Are they finding their place? Are they finding their community here? And if they aren't, and they're leaving us, or they're complaining about us, then we're not delivering on that. And then finally, developing, that should show up in the amount of leaders that you have in the organization. And then the last piece of it is, you got to have world-class value. People stay because of the value that you give them. People buy from you because of the value you give to them. So to me, that was the way my simple mind came up with, who are we? What are we doing here? And we use that mission not as just something pretty that hangs on the wall. We use it as something that's that lens that we look through, and we can say, yeah, this is on mission, right? This is what we're doing.
And you look at that always, and you make your decisions based upon that. Jeff Henderson wrote that book, What Are You Known For? And it's interesting, what do you want to be known for? And then if you interviewed people, is that what you're really known for? I'd call it your audio matching your video. When we're on at the movies and they don't have it quite synced up, it's so annoying. And that's how leaders are. You really do have your audio and your video matching. And I just love that about you. You brought up so many good things. You brought up the fact we don't get what we want, we get who we are. So we have to work on ourselves. And you also brought up thinking time. So I want to ask you, do you have thinking time in your schedule? And if so, how often and for how long?
Yeah, so I call it junk drawer. So I have junk drawer because we all got it, right? In our kitchens, got all the stuff. And that's the way my mind is like a big junk drawer. And I front load my week. Don't try to reach me on Mondays, right? I'm a maximizer personality. I try to get as much done in the beginning of a week as I can. And then Friday, I might, if I have gotten all my work done, I might be the sorriest human on earth on Friday, or it's me time, right? So junk drawer, I usually will have 2 to 3 blocks in a week that, they could be an hour to 3 hours, and they're designed to help me, achieve the things that are in that plan, that 411 that I haven't done yet, or things that I said were important that I'm, might be overanalyzing. I might be asking myself, why am I not getting this done? What is stopping me from doing? Is this really important? Am I suggesting this is more important than I think it is? But my thinking really is around priorities and making sure that I get the things that I said I was going to get done, and if I didn't, why?
So on priorities, you work with a lot of business people. Owning as many businesses as you do, you have leaders under you. How do you help them learn priorities?
Hmm. I mean, it's the same process that I use, right? It's a 411 based upon a 135 that helps really clear the air. Um, Man, there's just so many things you can do in the course of a day, and you can call it productive. Um, is it? You know, I think it's important to know the personal side of people, what they want. If you're doing a 411 review, like a one-on-one with people, um, I'll use one of our general managers as an example. Most of the time, this general manager nailed their job. Like, we didn't really talk about a lot of business stuff on one-on-ones. Instead, we focused on, like, hey, I noticed you didn't get your daddy-daughter date night done. What's your plan there? You haven't taken all your vacations, or you really want this Porsche and it's been on your 411 for a couple of years. What's important to you about that? And is that still a priority? Um, when people get off track, of course, we spend a lot of time talking about the business. But what I love is that, when people nail it and people know what they need to do, there needs to be some course corrections at times. But where we really want to get people is we talk about what they want to talk about, not what I want to talk about. And the only way we do that is by knowing what those priorities are. And we all have an agreement, right? It's like, we're not going to move on from talking about the business until we get this fixed. Is that okay? Yes. And then you got permission to hold people accountable.
And you go back to that nutshell as to who they are. And I love that about you. It's all coming together. You said some things that maybe some of our folks don't really understand unless they're with Keller Williams or in your world. The 411 we explained a little bit earlier, yet you brought up the 135. And so let's go into what is a 135.
Yeah. So what's the goal? I mean, a lot of times we'll sit on a staff meeting and you just kind of have to butt in and say, I'm sorry, what is the goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? Or we're in the weeds, right? Or drama has filled the air, and we're not focused on what the main goal is of the organization. And you got it. There's a lot of goals, but there's really one goal, right? There's one thing that everybody agrees on is the most important thing. And so that's the one and the 135. And then the cool thing is there's a lot of different ways to get that one goal, and we call those priorities, right? So we have 3 priorities that help us achieve that one goal. And right, wrong, or indifferent, the way I've always thought about this is that you have three plans. You actually yes, you could achieve that one goal, but you might actually have three plans working at the same time that 3x that goal. And then inside of each one of those priorities, those three priorities, we have 5 strategies. And those are the things where we dig deep, in terms of activities and tangible things that we have to do in order to achieve those priorities. But there is no perfectly executed plan in my mind. And the 1-3-5 just kind of gives you a little bit of grace and says that, you're probably not going to hit every single strategy, right? You're probably not going to hit 15 strategies in order to get this one goal. But if you could do 2 in this priority and 3 in this one and 2 in this one, I bet you're going to hit your goal. Bet you will.
I found a CEO in using that for 14 years, that and the 411, that it just keeps everybody focused. And as you said, you may not get to all 5 strategies, yet you get to some of them, even if it's just a little bit. Do you assign those strategies out to individuals to be over them?
People, yeah. There's a driver. It's hard to see anything getting done without accountability, right? And somebody owning it. So yes, you need to assign a person to it. I think about the business, and my world obviously now is the brokerage side of things. And we've gone down this path of, we have individual brokers and we just pile on and pile on and pile on. And the job profile for that person has just gotten out of control. And so I've spent the last 5 years really identifying what is that 20% activity that needs to be done. And then how do I start getting some of this 80% stuff off? Not that it's not important. It's just not important for that particular role. It's just we've let it go on for a long time, and it's just easy to pile things on. So by taking that 80 off of the broker, the manager, leader of a particular brokerage, we then take it off and we start hiring somebody. And in my world, we call them directors, that they then become the drivers for those things. And they help the broker achieve more, right? They help them become more because they become more specialized and they can breathe a little bit, right? They're able to live inside of their strengths and they're able to deliver on the 20% that they were originally hired for. So it's really getting that clarity of vision around what are they doing and making sure that we've got the best people to do the other stuff. And this is where when we start thinking about growing a big organization and having multiple locations, this is why I became obsessed with that, because in order for us to get that stuff off and acknowledging that it has to be done, we still have to find somebody to do it, which means we have expense, right? We have payroll expense for that. And you got to have more locations in order to justify those expenses. So that has driven me to grow the organization, 4 locations, 8 locations, just keep growing and growing.
Well, you're in multiple locations now, and yet they're not in your hometown. You've got Atlanta, Savannah. You recently went into the Carolinas. What took you into the Carolinas?
So our original big vision was to be involved in 50 different brokerages. And I wasn't naive enough to think that I would be the leader for all 50. I just wanted to be able to impact 50 different markets. And so I do believe with the right leaders in place that we can take territory, right, in our business, and we can help other locations. For me, it really became about like, where do I like to go? Where are the places that I'm passionate about? I'm a Georgian. Ironically, all of my family, in the 1700s immigrated from Scotland and Ireland, and they came through Sumter, South Carolina. They actually came through Charleston and then settled in Sumter and then settled into Georgia. But I went to college in South Carolina. Like we've owned real estate, my family in South Carolina for over 30 years. So South Carolina has always been a place that I've been passionate about, even though I'm a Georgian. And when I think about legacy, because that's the name of our group, we're the Georgia Legacy Group, the Carolina Legacy Group. When I think about legacy, it's not just what you leave, it's where you came from, like what where did you come from? And so there's a little bit of tie from the past to the future. And that was a long-winded answer as to why we chose South Carolina and North Carolina versus Colorado or California, or another great state. It was just something that had a piece of us in it, right? So yeah, that we had a big vision for what we wanted to accomplish, and then we had to figure out, well, where would we want to go? And we wanted to have some rhyme or reason, not just throw in business cards all over the country.
Yeah, no, once again, you're very intentional about what you do, and you let your past not dictate, yet it does influence your decisions. So what are the best decisions that you've made in your life besides marrying that wonderful lady, your wife? Tell us some other ones that people can learn from and become more from.
I remember when I was graduating from college and I had a great opportunity with Xerox. My dad started with Xerox and learned to be a salesperson there and learned management there. And I remember when I got that job offer, my dad was like, well, you've got to take that. You have to take that. That's what I did. And I was like, well, yeah, but I remember growing up, like my dad was a serial entrepreneur and he did a lot of what I'm doing right now. Like he opened up offices in Georgia and Alabama and the Carolinas and Mississippi and Louisiana, and he was traveling all over the Southeast. And I didn't see him a whole lot. Like he would come home and we'd have some time on the weekend, but he was working. He was hard at it. And I remember when I got that job offer, I was going to go to Charlotte and work for Xerox. And I remember calling dad and he was so proud. He was like, oh my gosh, you got to do this, bud. And I was like, what do you think about me coming to work with you? And he's like, wait, what? But that was like the best 7, 8 years. And it was an opportunity to kind of reconnect, and learn. I got all the Xerox stuff because I got that from him anyway. But it was
Yes.
just, I think that was a good decision. It taught me the value of a family business, right? That was really important. Um, I think then when Lesley had the opportunity to get into real estate, we got to create another family business. Ironically, Dianna, our son, John Morgan, he is soon to be 18. He's taking his real estate license right now and says, you know what, I'm starting to smell the cooking on some of this real estate stuff. So there could be another round of this coming up.
Yeah.
So I think family business is something that's important to me. I don't think that I'll never say never, right? In terms of like thinking of corporate or I mean, Keller Williams is a great company and it's, obviously out of Austin, Texas. And I'll never say never, but I really am enjoying what I'm doing, building my own region, right? Building my own group of offices that will maybe one day, if my family wants it, will be something that they can carry on.
I think the big thing is that you're helping other people. You also do a lot of charity work within the state of Georgia. You help the homeless. Uh, what was going on that you decided to go into that area and help other people? Because so many folks, they just want everything for themselves. And yet you desperately want to help these people.
Well, homelessness is obviously, if you're in the real estate space, is something that pulls at your heartstrings. The state of Georgia, and particularly Atlanta, has one of the largest adolescent homelessness populations. And what happens in that community is they age out of foster care and there's nowhere to go, right? And they are missed out. And there was a big need in Atlanta for that. And we were connected. And honestly, I don't even know. We had several people that kind of pointed us in the direction of this one charity. It's called Chris 180. And Chris 180 has homes, helps people kind of bridge that gap, teaches them life skills. They give them a suit or a nice dress for an interview, or help them how to balance a checkbook. And I think there was a moment as we were building that real estate team where we're like, we're kind of disjointed. We're doing a lot of charity events. We're doing a lot of things for people because we had these critical mass where we had all these people together. And when you get them together, you might as well do a little bit of good in the world. But
Yes.
we were misfiring because we weren't going deep. We were just a little bit here, a little bit there. And it wasn't until we said, all right, we've got a year worth of activities, a year worth of events. There's so many different needs that we had identified, whether that's coat drives, whether that's hygiene kits, whether that's having a drive-in movie event for our clients where we would invite the homes of all the children. We'd have them come to our movie events, or a Braves event for our people. And we would say, we're so proud to have, Chris 180 home number 3 here to be our guests for the Braves game. We had charity, Kentucky Derby party where we would bet on horses and all the money would go to charity, and it would go to Chris 180.
That's fabulous.
And the development, leader there would tell us where this money was going to be used, like how many kids this would impact. So what we learned through that was, yes, it broke our heart to see what was going on in Atlanta. But we really needed to go deep. We needed to make a commitment. We needed to go deep with something, and we needed to make sure that we weren't scattered. So that's where that came from, and that's why it was.
It's like digging that 100-foot hole is much better than digging 100 one-foot holes, right? You're going deep. So what parting words would you like to share with the people today?
Go for it. Go for it. I don't know that I ever, when I was in high school, saw myself as being a real estate agent. I actually thought I was going to be an architect. But along the way, right, I was paying attention to what my bride was doing, and things changed. And if you're going to make a commitment to something, be the best that you can possibly be. Don't be afraid to hire a coach. I wish I'd hired a coach a lot sooner. Take a bet on yourself, though. Go for it and bet on yourself.
Those are great words of wisdom, Andy. We're so glad that you're with us. And I want you to know you are somewhat of an architect, because you are helping people form a great foundation, and you are showing them the future, giving them a mission and a vision to complete their lives, and allowing them to leave a legacy that they so desire. So thank you for your time today. All of you that are watching or listening to this and becoming more, I know it has helped you. And listen to Lesley and Andy Peters on the podcast that we do together, as well as Lesley's individual podcast, to learn more about this wonderful couple, how they have become more, and they desire for you to become more as well. Thanks so much. See you, Andy.
Thanks, Dianna. Love you.
Love you.
In your life, you deserve to be more, do more, have more, and give more. And now the Becoming More podcast with Dianna Kokoszka.